In 1848, the Mexican-American War ended with the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. The United States formally pledged to protect the property rights of Mexican citizens. This promise specifically applied to communal land grants, vast territories owned and managed by entire communities rather than individuals. This topographical map shows the Las Vegas land grant, which encompassed roughly 500,000 shared acres. For decades, local residents had used this expanse collectively to graze sheep, harvest timber, and access the region's limited water supply. By ratifying the treaty, the United States legally bound itself to preserve shared ownership that functioned in direct opposition to the private commercial interests pushing westward. The pressure on these communal lands increased in the late 1870s when the railroad reached Las Vegas, accelerating the pace of economic activity. The new rail lines brought a flood of speculators from the East Coast and Europe. These investors were often supported by the Santa Fe Ring, a powerful group of lawyers and politicians who used their influence to facilitate large-scale land acquisition. To secure these lands, speculators utilized a new, inexpensive technology, barbed wire. They used it to fence off hundreds of thousands of communal acres, creating private ranches that blocked locals from their traditional grazing grounds and water. When Hispanic locals attempted to challenge these enclosures, they found the court system stacked against them. Judges and district attorneys associated with the Santa Fe Ring frequently allowed cases to stall, leaving the illegal fences standing. As the shared resources of the grant vanished behind private wire, a local saying emerged in San Miguel County: "With barbed wire came hunger." With the legal system effectively closed to them, the residents of the Las Vegas grant began seeking ways to protect their livelihoods outside of the American courtrooms. In 1889, that response took a militant form. A secret organization of masked riders began operating at night, wearing white hoods to protect their identities. They were known as Las Gorras Blancas, the Whitecaps. The group was led by three brothers, Juan José, Pablo, and Nicanor Herrera, all of whom were experienced in labor organization. Their campaign focused on the destruction of property. To protest the privatization of the commons, they cut through miles of wire, destroyed railroad ties, and burned the haystacks of commercial ranchers. They distributed a manifesto called their Platform, which explicitly demanded an end to political corruption and the removal of land grabbers who were interfering with the communal grant. Despite widespread damage to commercial infrastructure, the government failed to secure convictions. When suspects were arrested, the local community maintained a wall of silence, refusing to provide the testimony necessary for the state to prosecute. These raids demonstrated that the community could physically disrupt the regional economy, but the fences themselves were only a symptom of the broader legal control held by the Santa Fe Ring. The Herreras realized that physical sabotage had limits. To protect the grant permanently, they would need to challenge the Santa Fe Ring within the electoral system itself. They organized a third-party political movement called El Partido del Pueblo Unido, or the United People's Party, to represent the interests of the laborers and land grantors. In the elections of 1890, the party's candidates were elected to nearly every local office in San Miguel County. Juan José Herrera became a judge, while his brother Pablo won a seat in the territorial legislature. The territorial establishment was stunned. The same men they had characterized as lawless vigilantes now held official positions of power within the government. Las Gorras Blancas had transitioned from a clandestine resistance movement into the elected local leadership of the county. However, the shift into the legislature proved difficult. Pablo Herrera quickly found that the state government was too deeply influenced by commercial interests to allow for the sweeping land reforms he sought. Disillusioned, he left the legislature after a single term. He famously remarked that he found more honesty among the inmates of the territorial prison than among the members of the government. The political establishment responded with a coordinated crackdown. They deployed Pinkerton detectives to monitor the Herrera brothers and used legal pressure to fracture the United People's Party. The movement suffered a definitive blow in late 1891 when Pablo Herrera was shot and killed by a deputy sheriff in Las Vegas. No charges were brought against the deputy. By the mid-1890s, the political momentum had faded. Commercial ranchers and railroad companies resumed their control over the territory, and the barbed wire fences returned to the Las Vegas land grant. While the struggle did not end the privatization of the land, Las Gorras Blancas established a historical precedent. They demonstrated that a community, when organized, could effectively disrupt industrial expansion in defense of its own resources.